Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube page. In this video, I'm going to try and describe a little bit about what flats, darks, and biases are when it comes to calibration frames for astrophotography. Before we start getting into this, just want to let you know I'm not an expert at this. I've only been doing astrophotography for about a year, so what I say might actually not be correct. And if you have any more information on it or want to clear some up, please leave it in the comments below. I'm always open to learning. I'm also going to apologize for the audio. I really don't have a good microphone. I'm using a Bluetooth headset from my cell phone right now, so the sound is probably not that great. All right, so now we have that taken care of. We'll get into it here. All right, so what are calibration frames? Calibration frames are used to remove noise data from your final image. So what you would do is you go out, you take your lights, which is your actual pictures with the light in it, and you'd get a bunch of those pictures to stack on top to help remove noise. And your calibration frames are going to further help try and remove some of that noise data that gets in there. When you're taking high ISO pictures with a little bit of light, you're going to start getting a lot of color in your, you're going to start getting a lot of noise in your pictures. So the first set of calibration frames you would take would be darks. Now I took these the other night in the Cygnus area, like the Witches and Broom Nebula, the North American Nebula, with a 50 millimeter lens, f3.2, ISO 800, and my lights were 2.5 minutes. Now with darks, you can see down here that we have an f3.2. This was 3 minutes long. Oh, no, it's 2.5 minutes. And ISO 800. So that's kind of important. When you take your darks, how you're going to take these is you want your camera sensor to be about the same temperature as you took your light. So either like right before you start your imaging or right after. I do it right after. You're going to set your camera up just like you're going to take your pictures of your target, only you're going to put the lens cap on. What you want to do is you want to catch the noise data that your sensor is going to generate over this ISO and this time frame. So the further, you can kind of already see in here these little white dots and a couple red ones in there. So to kind of further enhance this a little bit, let's open up Camera Raw. And I'm just going to go on ahead and bump this exposure up so you can kind of really dramatically see what's going on. I mean, here you got all this light green everywhere, and you got some lines shooting across the screen. These lines are actually more your inherent sensor, and I'll get into that with bias. But you got like a hot pixel here, you got one there. And so this shows up in your picture. When you start doing your stretching, you start opening up your picture, you're going to kind of see this green in there, and it's going to distract from it. It's going to become harder to clear up. You could run a denoise filter later with Photoshop, but that also blurs your entire image. So why do we take so many of them? Why don't you just take one picture, throw it in there, subtract it from it, call it a day? Well, to show you that, I'm going to close this, let that go through, and now I'm going to develop all of these with the same settings. These are all developed. We could look here. I would have one. And as I scroll through it, you'll notice the picture kind of changes a little bit. So each time you take the picture, it's not going to be the same noise pattern. So what you want to do is get about 20 of these, and then the stacking software is going to go through and it's going to make this master folder here. And what it's going to do is it's going to average all the information in here and kind of create this little bit of a master thing. You can't remove all the data, take out this color. So open this in Camera Raw and we'll see what it looks like when we blow it up. You kick this exposure up. Now it looks a little bit, it's not quite as colorful and bright, and you got more hot pixels in here. These pixels are areas where you're generally going to get a lot of noise, so it makes it brighter. And then in here, it's not quite as bad. Here, if I bump the contrast up even more, you can see. So it's going to subtract all this out of the picture, and it's going to, there's no light coming into your camera, so this is going to be all that just the sensor's generating. And you would look at this and go, man, wow, look at all these stars in the picture, and it's really not. It's just noise. That is the darks. Our next section we're going to talk about is called bias frames. Bias frames are the coloring in it's like lines and stuff that are formed from just the camera sensor being on. These are the easiest and the quickest to take. All you're going to do is make sure that your camera's at the same ISO setting as you took your light pictures. It doesn't have to be the same lens that you use. It doesn't have to be the same temperature. It doesn't matter on any of that. It just needs to be at the same ISO. And what you're going to do is you're going to set your camera up to the fastest shutter speed that you could possibly get. As you can see over here, my fastest shutter speed is 4,000 of a second. So you're going to go in, put your lens cap on, put any lens on that you want, put this thing into like a dark closet, and snap about 50 pictures. And with this, let's see, I'll open up Camera Raw, and we'll take a look at what my camera sensor looks like. If I bump up the contrast and the exposure, now you can kind of see more. This is the noise pattern that my sensor is going to generate. You'll see now that there is like this pattern in here. And if you stretch out like one single light frame, you will see this pattern. It won't be quite as obvious because there'll be some color over it and more light, but you'll see it. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. So that's bias. It's just inherent camera sensor noise that your camera has. And the last one that we're going to discuss is the flats. And this one, to me, I think is a little bit more of the important one, at least with my camera. It's also one of the hardest ones to take. So here we have a flat. We call it flat. And mine has like this weird tint to it because I use we call a city light suppression filter, and it adds a green tint to everything. So if you're using one of those filters, you want to make sure that you have the filter in when you take all of these. So you'll see here on this, there's kind of like in these corners over here, it's like a purple color, and in the center is green. This is kind of the vignetting that your camera lens will make. So to take this, you want your, to take flat frames, you're going to go and cover your lens with a white t-shirt, something to diffuse the light. I use just a white t-shirt. You could go out in the middle of the day, point this up at the sky on a really clear day, and as long as you get like a pretty even dispersion of the light over the lens, you're good. I use my cell phone, and I've got like a white screen app that just turns the screen bright white, and I set that directly over the lens so it covers the whole lens, and it just takes the pictures that way. You're going to keep it at the same the same f-stop, same focal length, and the same ISO that you take your light pictures with. What you're trying to do is you're trying to capture the vignetting that your lens is going to create. But you want this to be even across, you want the light to be even. You're going to set your shutter speed so that way the histogram is over in this section of your histogram, so down in the shadows, not the darks, not the highlights, but right here in the shadows. This is about where you want it to be exposed at when you take the picture. All these are going to take like an average and then make a master file. So you need about 20 darks, 50 bias, and about 35 of these flats. And this number comes from various research with other astrophotographers on YouTube that kind of came to the consensus that this is about the number you'd want because it gives you a good average without wasting your time taking more pictures. When you think about your dark frames, even if you're going to take them at the same time as your lights, now we're 2.5 minutes each, that's over an hour of just taking pictures of the dark. So again, about 20 for the darks, 50 for the bias, about 35 for the flats. Now, how does all this tie into picture? Let's open up some of this stuff here in Photoshop. I'll be back in a second when all my things are open in Photoshop. Okay, we're here in Photoshop, and as you can see, I have one of my light frames open from my image the other night. This is a 2.5 image photo at 50 millimeters of, you got the neb over here, and then Satyrs right here. And then down here, you can barely make it out, but it's part of the Veil Nebula. And again, mine's got this blue tint because of a city light suppression filter. So I'm going to kind of go through and do like a really quick what we would do for stretching out your image. I'm not going to get into too much processing in this because this is more about the darks, not the processing. But I'm just going to run through real quick, and I'm going to stretch this out a little bit like we were doing a picture. Let's bring just our All right, so this would be kind of like how you would kind of color correct and stretch it out. If you look, this image looks horrible. There's the purpling around the side, green in the center. If I zoom in here, does this pattern look kind of familiar? There's the camera noise picture. And you've got like what appears to be stars here. You got some red dots here. Like, oh, those look like good stars, but this is a mess inside of here. And again, you've got this like purpling and green splotchiness all over the all over. This is all noise that's being pulled out now that I'm stretching it. And if you do okay, so now you see all this noise in here. Now if I stack all these photos and I use my calibration frames, this is kind of what you get coming out of the box, and you have to process this. Now all that purpling is gone. It's kind of even throughout. It's harder to see the nebula right now, but it's still there, and you could kind of barely see the Veil Nebula down here. If I zoom in, you could like go to about 100%. Now you can barely see it there. Over here at 100%, it's a little bit more obvious, but look at all this like trash in there. It's all grainy looking compared to how smooth this looks. And don't worry that you can't see this in this image, because we're going to process this out. And as you process it, you're going to bring out all this information that's in there, but you don't want to do that with all of this noise in there, because you're going to blow out all this noise too, and it's really going to take away from your picture. Now remember, we were mentioning all this purpling around the edges here, and you got the green in the center. That's kind of this right here. Look, it's green in the center, purple on the edges. Now remember, this is a 1/400th of a second picture. This is a 2.5 minute picture. So now, like, you really notice this vignetting around here, and that it is actually lines up with this. Let's see if I could bring up the vibrance in it, and it really. Just see if I bring up the vibrance a little bit, you can kind of see it a little bit better. But again, this is why you take the 35 of these flat frames. And if you look in our auto-saved image here, and zoom out, even if I go in and I stretch this all around, I'm pulling this up, look, you don't notice that vignetting around the edges there. You don't see it at all. And even too, as I bring up, I'll zoom back in to get it's harder to see the nebula now, but even as I bring up all the, stretch it out, it still is relatively like smooth looking in the darker areas of the picture, and you have the color in here versus all of this noise. Now, with the dark frames, we have here, see there's like this purple color spot right there. Let's go over here and zoom this out. Now, there's a lot going on here, so it's hard to see where all this might be. But let's do this. Let's throw this on top of this right here. Gonna line it up there. And we're gonna zoom in over here where this color is, this spot. Yeah, see, here's that noise pattern again that's popping up. Now, if I reduce this here, you see this, what looks like a star right here, this red thing. First of all, this doesn't really look like a star, because look how these are all like elongated in the corner. That's like a perfect circle. But it does kind of look like some of these stars, because it's like bright in the center with the red fringe on it. But as I pull up this image, look, that dot's still there, but now that what we said was a star, over here is gone. See again, you got bright dot there. Cut that down, there's no dots there. Now, if you start taking pictures like this and you do 20 of them, 40 of them, 60 of them, 100 of them, you're going to start getting these little dots everywhere. Because they're so bright, it's going to be kind of weird for the stacking it to kind of hide that. It'll get hidden a little bit because it'll eventually average itself out. But adding these calibration frames will really help remove that and clean up the image some. So now you don't wind up with these little red dots everywhere in your picture. Now, when you stack all these and you do all these calibration frames and deep sky stacker or sequitur, go through and remove all this, you get that TIFF file. Looks really clean. There's no hot pixels in there. You don't have a lot of the noise data. Your vignetting is gone. Now you can process your image, and this was the final process of that image. So like you could really see now, you can even see the colors in the Veil Nebula. Down there, you got this is black over here. I don't have a lot of like weird green going on. See, there's none of that dirt in there. My stars are nice and sharp. I don't have green in the center. I don't have purple on the edges. There's a little bit of a vignetting going on here, but I actually added that. But it's not that green and purple, and this actually looks more like a legit color photo. So I hope that this video helped kind of explain to you a little bit more about the process of what the calibration frames are and like what they're actually doing to your photo, and also how to get them. So just to recap, you're going to take your lights, which is your pictures. Then you're going to take your darks, which is going to be a picture with your lens cap on, same ISO setting, same basically none of your settings are going to stay to change at all. The only difference is you're going to put a lens cap on, take about 20 of these pictures. Your bias frames, you could even make like a folder of these one day, just go through a different ISO settings, snap off 50, leave a folder, and then when you go do your processing, just pull them in. You don't even have to worry about going out and doing this every time, especially if you use the same ISO settings. I think you could even just drop in your master file from then on and just use the master. I'm not sure on that. So if anybody in here knows if you could use your master file over again without having to keep adding these and stacking and averaging them out to save time, please leave a comment down below. And then your flats, again, these are the hardest one. Okay, I hope that helps you kind of understand what these dark color frames are, or different calibration frames are. There's some astrophotographers out there that say that it's kind of a waste of time, and it does help in my opinion, it does help clean up your image a little bit. Stacking will eliminate a lot of the problems, just stacking it alone. So if you don't even want to bother with this, you can still kind of clean it up in post-processing, but I personally find that it makes the post-processing part of it easier. I hope this helps, and again, if I said anything that is incorrect, or you want clarification on something, or I just didn't quite get the point across, just leave a comment down below, and I'll get back to you. Thank you.